Hello, Hoovers, and welcome to the third channel. We're back on the wayside. Hooray! Hey! We're back with more interviews. See, you never get rid of me, yes. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, why would you not know? I've created channel number 18, which has got 2 videos currently on it. So you can go and watch that nonsense. That is nonsense where I don't speak, I just nearly fall over. It's silent movie-esque. It's Laurel and Hardy having a fight against each other. And so, we're back with more interviews. I recently did an interview on Tom's Comedy Club, so you can go and check out an interview there. Now, today we have a very special interview. This interview doesn't come from the year 2000, but the stuff he's done has come from the year 2000. Now, there was a campaign to get Balamory on a BBC iPlayer. We got some of it, but is there a campaign to get what my guest is famous for? Well, let's introduce him. He's famous for the Tweenies, and we need that back on the iPlayer. Let's try and get it on the iPlayer. It's the one and only Bob Golding!
Wow, what an introduction, mate. I mean, you've been rehearsing that for weeks, haven't you, Tom?
No.
Oh, is that slick, folks. He's that slick. He's come straight from a funeral and dressed up for the occasion, no, it's not a funeral. It's a job interview, wasn't it? Sorry, Tom.
And so we'll start at the very beginning, because it's a very good place to start.
Is this a job interview? Can I just ask, am I getting something at the end of it?
No. Well, you'll get more famous.
Why am I here? Why am I here? Yeah, go on.
So we'll start at the very beginning, because Julie Andrews, who needs to calm down at this point, says it's a very good place to start. I've never met the one. So I do apologize if you're watching. But how did you get into acting?
Me or Julie Andrews?
You.
I just love Julie Andrews. No, how did I get into it? Blimey, I guess it was because I couldn't do anything else, Tom. I at school sort of excelled in the practical creative arts. I wasn't necessarily a natural academic. So I used to put all my passion and love into drama and music and, the creative arts, basically. So that's where it sort of sparked. And then my father worked for a big pharmaceutical firm. He was an electrician, and they had a big works do that took us off to a pantomime. All the kids of the people that worked at this firm went to watch the pantomime at the Intimate Theatre in Edmonton, far, far from your land of Lancashire, down in near Enfield, basically, near Tottenham. That might give it some geography for yourself and your listeners, subscribers, I should say. And it's a tiny little theatre called the Intimate Theatre, and Bill Owen, another actor who you probably don't know who he is, but he played Compo in Last of the Summer Wine. He was playing the dame in Mother Goose. He was playing Mother Goose. I remember seeing it and thinking, wow, it really kind of affected me, these people performing on the stage. And I thought, I think I might like to have a go at that. So I did a lot of junior theatre stuff at school. And then I started getting into things like Shakespeare, became a member of the Royal Shakespeare Company mailing list. And my poor dad was dragged along when I was a young teenager to a place like Stratford. And at the time they had a theatre. It's now no longer a theatre. It's a conference hall called the Mermaid Theatre down on the side of the Thames there near the city. And there was a show on called Fair Maid of the West by Thomas Hayward. It's a sort of Shakespearean type comedy, adventure comedy. But it had the most incredible cast I'd ever seen. This was around 1985. It was Imelda Staunton, Sean Bean, Pete Postlethwaite, Simon Russell Beale. I mean, the list goes on. Joe Melia, Tony Armatrading, Gary Love. All these people that went on to have huge careers afterwards, they were all sort of finding their feet in the Royal Shakespeare Company, which was an honour to be there. So my dad and I saw it about 23 times, and it really inspired me to want to go to train and to become an actor. So I don't know if you were expecting a very long answer to your question, but you got one.
And was there any TV shows that also helped to inspire you to not just go into the theatre, but go on to the lovely screen we call television?
Wow, I mean, yeah, it's hard to avoid. I'm early 50s now, so growing up with we grew up with television. Television was, the focal point in the lounge, wasn't it? In those days, we had a little black and white TV. We used to like programs like Grange Hill, and I remember writing to the BBC saying, "There's never anything on for kids on a Sunday. It's all boring stuff about politics and farming. Why can't we have kids TV?" stuff. Of course, this is the days when there were only 3 channels. And then Channel 4 came along, which was a huge revelation. I think that was 1983, 84. And it brought more content, I suppose. So, yeah, my earliest memories of TV, I guess, is watching things like Captain Pugwash and Finger Bob and, so many kids' programs. Bod was another one. Friends of mine have just worked with Derek Griffiths, who amazing performer and actor and musician, and he wrote all the music for it. And I was so jealous that they were doing a show with him, so I never got to meet him via my friends Dick and Dom. So yeah, that made a big impact on my life, I suppose, as a kid. But it wasn't really inspirational; it was more sort of cultural. So I was watching TV the same as everyone else was. But of course, what else was on in those days, which is not on now, sadly, on BBC Two especially, there were loads of old black and white comedies, including, classics like Laurel and Hardy, Harold Lloyd, Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, and my favourite, Will Hay. Around the 30s, he made lots of comedy films with his best ones, are more sort of known ones, were with 2 other comedy actors called Graham Moffat and Maud Marriott. And it was all slapstick comedy and quite wordy and very fast paced. Oh, come on, put some beef in it. I am putting beef in it. And, it's all very slapstick and fast paced. So that really caught my attention, as well as all the other comedy stuff that come. I loved making people laugh. I guess I was the school class joker, although I didn't really excel at school. It wasn't until I got to about 16 and I went to college in a place called Hitchin in Hertfordshire, and I did 3 years. It was only a 2-year course, but they gave you the option to stay for a 3rd year as a purely practical year doing productions. And during that time, I joined a theatre company, and we started touring around and trying to get contracts to get what was then the sought-after membership of Equity via the Equity card. But of course, you couldn't get the Equity card and membership without contracts, and you couldn't get contracts without the Equity card. So you had to be quite clever of how you got it. And I managed to join a theatre company at college who were semi-professional. So we had the facilities of a college, and then we went out to places like old folks' homes and schools and nurseries and events in the summer, and put on various small shows, an hour-long show. We did one show called World War II in 40 minutes, which was great. And Do You Remember the Early 50s was another one. And we did standards like Snow White and other kid shows as well. And then I finally got my card with my then best mate, well, still one of my best mates in the world, actually, Glenn Davis, he plays Mr. Prank in Bear Behaving Badly now. Or he did do when they were filming. But we toured around the UK doing a show called Mum, There's a Martian in the Shower. I'm not making this up, Tom, it's true. And we managed to get the contracts together to get our elusive Equity card. And then we were professional actors. So the world was our oyster, fish. And it all sort of started there, really. And theatre's always been the backbone of everything I've done. But I've been lucky enough to work in TV over the last 30 years as well. So, it's just fingers in pies, really. You as an actor, a performer, you try and take the jobs that you think you'll enjoy, but also you try and take the jobs to be employed. And so you get very little choice at the beginning of your career. In fact, you get very little choice throughout your whole career, really. You've just got to accept the jobs that come your way. You don't necessarily choose your career. The career chooses you. And as long as the ball is still rolling and you're still working, then you're doing something right. But it's a very tough business to be in.
Yeah. And I'm really intrigued to know what Grange Hill would look like in black and white, because I've only ever seen Grange Hill in colour. So so if it's something that be worth adding on to BritBox, an option to turn it to black and white, because I'm intrigued Don't know whether or
I
not.
think black and white TV in general will be good to bring back to the youth of today. I mean, I scolded my kids when they were younger. I've got 4 children, because they always thought, "Oh, black and white's boring." And some of the best and funniest and most incredible films and TV programs ever made were made in black and white. And I urge anyone who hasn't watched any of that to start looking at it. Just get some of them are the little shorts, like Harold Lloyd did little 25-minute shows, which was so clever. It was American, but we had in this country, we had George Formby as well. He was a bit crazy, but kind of directed towards kids as well. Norman Wisdom as well had that kind of feel to him all through the 30s, 40s and 50s. And then, of course, the advent of colour made everything more sort of accessible, I guess. But yeah, I was inspired certainly by the comedic side of what was going on TV throughout my childhood, which Grange Hill had a little bit of that, but mostly it was quite challenging. It was all about social issues and, you know, the smoking and not doing drugs and, domestic abuse and all that kind of stuff that we all need to find out about, coming from prepubescent to pubescent into adolescence and into real life. But so there wasn't that many laughs in it, but when there was laughs in it, it was great. And that's what really sort of opened my eyes and made me want to become an actor, really.
Well, there is still a small percentage of people, according to some stat I read a few years ago, there is still a small percentage of people who still watch and still have a TV license in black and white. So there is very, very small, but there is some people watching I'm a Celebrity in black and white, which is torturous to begin with, watching I'm a Celebrity in colour, let alone in black and white. I don't like it if you got that from that.
You don't like black and white?
No, I don't like I'm a Celebrity. I like black and white, but I don't like I'm a Celebrity.
I see.
Yeah, because you wouldn't have that time without black and white TV.
Yeah, but if you think about it, those kind of programs would probably, if they were still alive, the stars of Dad's Army and the like would probably be celebrities on I'm a Celebrity, wouldn't they? that would be cool.
It probably would be. And so, what are the most famous things that you are most famous for? And some parents, not every parent, have been probably scarred for life. I don't know. It's just some parents get freaked out.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for that, mate.
By Mr. Bobby. So, what was it like playing Max and Milo in The Incredible, The Tweenies?
Who is this bloke, Tom? What do you mean you don't know? Sorry. Yeah, Tweenies. Yeah, the journey of Tweenies was, we'll start at the very beginning. See, it's back to Julie Andrews again. Justin Fletcher and I, who then became Mr. Tumble, many years later, he and I had just finished working on a TV show called Fun Song Factory for GMTV for their early morning slot, just before, preschool slot for the little toddlers. And we were doing nursery rhymes and things like that. And the same production company that put that on, Telltale Productions, and the creatives in it, Ian Lachlan and Will Brenton, they were the brains behind Tweenies. And they for years they'd been working on and pitching ideas to the BBC for a live action preschool show. Now, after we finished doing Fun Song Factory, Justin and I went on and did pantomime in Coventry at the Belgrade Theatre with Colleen Daly. Also, she was in Panto that year too. And Ian and Will got on with us. We got on with them. It was a lovely professional relationship that we had. We became friends. They said, look, we're pitching this big idea for a preschool live action show to the BBC. Would you be up for doing some funny voices, basically? So Justin and I, we were sharing a flat at the time in Coventry, or a little house actually. And so we said, okay. And in those days, we had a tape recorder. So we had this little tape recorder that you press play and record at the same time. We plugged the microphone in, and we just took turns doing different voices. Oh, hello, I'm Marlo. And I'm Jake, and silly little characters that we were coming up with. He sort of spoke like this, going, oh yeah, my name's Milo. And it didn't sound like the Milo that we came to know, but it was good enough to give an idea, because they wanted youthful young kids, because they weren't really children, but they were characters, almost aliens, as you know. the preschool kids could identify with. So they all had certain traits. In fact, there was, of course, a fifth tweenie that was dropped called Sid. I think after discussions with the BBC, Will and Ian just decided to drop. Poor old Sid got the boot. So before it even aired, Sid was gone. But Milo, Fizz, Bella and Jake, they stayed. And of course, all the other characters that came with it, Doodles the dog, Izzles the dog, Max and Judy, Mungo the computer, and, all the other characters that came out of that were much, much later down the line. So to cut long story even longer, Justin and I pitched these tapes, sent them off, and that by the end of the Panto run, by the end of December, beginning of January, Ian and Will came to us and said, "We got the commission." And we thought, blimey, that's nice. We got a few months' work. That's lovely as an actor. And they said, no, the first one is a year's contract. So we didn't know what hit us, as actors that have been struggling to get 3 or 4 jobs a year to pay the rent, now had a guaranteed year's work. So that was phenomenal. We didn't know what we were taking on. And at the time, neither did anyone really, because they just had this image in their head of how the characters would look, how they wanted them to sound basically. So we did, we didn't air till 1999, but we did a lot of groundwork in 1998. For example, we had to learn an animatronic system, which, as you know, the characters, their mouths move and their eyes move. Well, the voices had to control those faces. Now, Justin and I, and Colleen, we'd never done any kind of puppet work like that before. But Sally Preissig, who was playing Bella, she'd done huge amounts of puppet work. In fact, she made puppets and was a world-known puppeteer. So she was kind of helping us, and we did weeks and weeks of workshops on, because in the first year the tweenies there was a hand glove puppet size that we did on location, which they dropped after a while because it just wasn't working. But we still had to learn how to do it, and also all these animatronics. There was a guy called Neil Scanlon who put this system together called the PAC system, the Performance Animatronic Control, which was basically like a PlayStation, but a much bigger one. So it developed later on to become just a little handheld thing on a stand, which was much easier to use. But originally, and what we were training for in 1998, were these 2 gloves that we put our hands in. And at the end of the fingers, there were wheels that we had to turn the wheels like that for blinks and then looks to the side and certain preset facial expressions that we could pull the wheels at the ends of our fingers. Also, there was some foot pedals for other pre-recorded moves that we'd done. So we were suddenly learning a musical instrument. It was an awful lot of intensive work of going in every day for a long, long time until we got to the stage of going, right, and we were all happy with how it looks, how it sounds. And then we had the trouble of how do we record it? It's probably one of the most asked questions to anyone who worked on tweenies. How do you shoot a live action show that felt so natural, that hadn't been done before? I think that's part of the tweenies' success, really, that there'd never been an accessible show for preschool kids that was very, very wordy, and it wasn't patronizing. It's quite fun. We followed the Teletubbies slot when we first aired, and it was all that time for Tubby bye-byes, bye-bye, 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 Tinky Winky. And then suddenly, it's really in your face. So because that had never been done in children's preschool shows before, there was a lot to take in and take on. So we had different stages of how we recorded it, whilst the skin actors, the actors that were in the costumes, rehearsed the scenes for 3 episodes. Whilst they were rehearsing, we were off doing music calls with the MDs, Liz Kitchen and Graham Pike, learning the songs and how they went and the harmonies, because there was a lot of harmonies as well. And then once we'd done that, at the end of that first week, we get in on the Friday when we watched the skin actors do the 3 episodes, making notes on our scripts, leave a pause because Milo bends to pick a ball up. Oh, then he gets hit with another ball that Fizz has thrown. All that kind of stuff you have to remember to write down. And then the next week, then we have studio week where then we have to record them. Yeah. So our brilliant sound designer, Wally Walters, had this system where as we were watching the skin actors do their rehearsals, we would go, "Oh, well, where you going, Jackie? Oh, don't play that. Play this with me." Yeah, and we record it all without the costumes on. So we just watched these actors, and they were miming what they were doing. They'd already learnt it, done it. So now they had to hand over the character to us to voice and give it that other dimension. Then on the third week, that's when we would go in the studio. They put their heads on. They played back what we recorded the previous week, the 3 episodes, and then that's when we had to learn how to do our animatronics when all the lights and the cameras and everything was on the floor. So it's a hugely lengthy process and a massive team of people. I mean, to take any kind of glory would be wrong of me, because it was really tantamount to all these people that were part of it on the production level and the creative level, the animation level, and the music. There's so many layers to it that all pointed towards success, because we all had a common goal. We wanted to make a brilliant, fun, groundbreaking preschool live action show that had never been done before with this amazing Neil Scanlon and animatronics. So, and I think that's pretty much why it became so popular so quickly. So 1999, when it aired, I think it was September, it kind of hit the ground running. And then by 2000, we were turning on Christmas lights in Birmingham, and it was mobbed. It was Tweenie mania. And the popularity was huge, and we didn't really know what had hit us. And then, but before long, we were doing albums, and we were on Top of the Pops. We had a Top of the Pops special just for tweenies. So it was an incredible journey to go on, and one I'll never forget. And we did nearly 400 episodes, and they are all out there somewhere. I don't know where they are. I've got a 4-year-old daughter now, and I desperately want to show her the programs. We've got all the DVDs of the songs and things like that, but the actual programs themselves, the content that we worked on so long, doesn't seem to be out there. Someone owns the rights for it, but I don't know if they've got any plans to bring it back. I think they should, don't you?
Well, I wouldn't try and bring it back, because they've done that with the Teletubbies, and I think they've ruined it. Well, they've brought it back to Netflix and given it an American twist to it, so it sort of ruins the type of program it was. So I do think, like what they do in Balamory, put it on the iPlayer. I mean, if Balamory can get on the iPlayer by fans screaming and yelling at the BBC, then we could do it with the tweenies. We just need one angry man or an angry woman yelling. We just need someone to yell, and then we'll get it.
Yeah, it was a bit in your face. But I mean, the old programs, some of them I think wouldn't necessarily stand the test of time with the cultural references we were referring to. That telephones and things like that. That's moved on so quickly in technology, which we obviously don't mention because it hadn't been invented yet. So I think to make it, I always thought that it would make a really good animation. And there's a whole new generation of kids out there that wouldn't know who the tweenies are. But of course, all the parents now are in their late 20s going, oh, this is what I watched as a kid. So it opens up all that nostalgia. It might not be exactly the same. And I don't think things should stay the same. I think change is really good and really important. But yeah, I thought an animation might be quite a nice little idea for the tweenies. So, Jake's. We're all going to stay the same age for forever, aren't we? We can never progress beyond the ages we were in the show. So that I think having grown up tweenies now would be very odd. I wonder what Milo would be like.
Yeah. Do you think?
Yeah. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think some of the episodes of Tweenies are available on YouTube. I think I've seen that they are knocking about on YouTube, because there is
Oh, really?
There is a YouTube channel that also uploads episodes of Balamory. But yeah, I used to love the Tweenies, and one of my favorite memories isn't even of the program. It's of an incident that occurred. So I had, because when I was younger, VHSs were still about. I was born in 2004, so VHS
2004.
Yeah, so VHS were still a thing, but it was like 3 or 4 or 5 years later when they all went. So I had a VHS of the Tweenies and a VHS of Boo Bars, which which is creepy. And so I went to my grandparents and I wanted to watch Tweenie special, and I don't know what the name of it was, but one of the characters was wearing a tutu, pretending to be one of those little dancing ballerinas, and instead of having, so I went to go put it in and I accidentally watched Boo Bars because I put the Boo Bars VHS in the Tweenies case and the Tweenies VHS in the Boo Bars case, and that was oldest. And me and my grandfather were absolutely appalled that I'd put it in the wrong thing, so we both were excited to watch Tweenies.
You made a bit of a boo then, didn't
Yeah.
you? Really?
That's it.
Yeah, you shouldn't have done that, Tom. You really shouldn't have done that.
Will you just please? This interview is with me, Milo. Do you mind? Oh, sorry, mate. Yeah, don't call me mate. He's so rude.
And not only have you appeared in the seminal classic, The Tweenies, that is now on the same, has been on the same program as the aptly named The Wombles, because they've both been on Top of the Pops, which doesn't happen that often. What was it like appearing in only 2 episodes of the numbers game, Numberjack?
Oh, we've moved on from Tweenies. Okay, I was going to talk about Max. Hey, never mind. Don't talk about me. No one wants to know.
No, that's right. What, Max? Yeah, don't be rude. Don't sit over there with the stormtrooper.
So Numberjacks. Yeah, well, that was a complete that sort of soon after Tweenies. In fact, straight after Tweenies, we had a few months break, and then we did a series called Jim Jam and Sunny that no one ever talks about anymore. It was an ITV, a CITV program. And it was a great show, actually. It was really strong characters, but never really quite got beyond one series. And I don't know the story behind why it didn't, but unfortunately it didn't. So we'll forget about that one. But yeah, I did Numberjacks was by a production company called Open Mind, I think. And they were based down in Hammersmith at the time. They had an office in St Albans, which is where I was living at the time, which was quite handy. But yes, the Puzzler and the Problem Blob were the characters that I did on there. They were weird. I mean, it was quite a strange premise. It was to explain it to someone who didn't know what the Numberjacks were. So the Numberjacks were numbers who had personalities, and they would all have their own sort of superhero traits. And in every episode, there will be some sort of jeopardy and a problem that they had to solve, which always involved maths or adding or taking away or dividing, or so it was introducing that to a preschool audience in a fun way. But it was fun, but it's also quite dark. I think there was a character called the Number Taker who looked like an Undertaker, but all in white. There was Ross Mullen who went on to become the White Walker in Game of Thrones. So it's quite apt, really. Yeah. And I did these 2 animated characters. There was the Puzzler, who was sort of disembodied floating head, who had this kind of cheesy voice like that.
Watch my face and mouth and eyes. It just really weird. I mean, it was all from this guy called Chris. I can't remember his surname now. God, this is awful, isn't it? But it is over 20 odd years ago, so I think I can be forgiven.
And the other character I did was Problem Blob, who was just a green lump of slime.
He didn't really speak any words, just made. So I used to have to get the train all the way down to Hammersmith to sit in a booth
to record this. And then they go, great, lovely, thanks, Bob, cheers. I sit back on the train to get back home. It was quite bizarre. But they made quite a lot of episodes, I think, and it was a reasonably popular show. And surprisingly, people online make comments to me going, oh God, that program scared me so much. This floating head with this weird ginger bubble beard was the Puzzler. It was quite disturbing. I'm sure you're going to put a picture up about now. Yeah, there he is. Thanks, Tom. So yeah, that's Puzzler. Oh, and this is the Problem Blob. There. So yeah, that was that show. I mean, it did. Tweenies, I have to say, did open the door for me to go and do a lot more of that kind of stuff. Voice work had always been there for me anyway, but I ended up doing much more animation. Thomas and I did 2 different series of Noddy and Dennis and Nasher and all those kind of things, which were great fun. Worked with some fantastic actors. And that's when the animation industry in the UK was.
What's really interesting about Numberjacks is, so the aim of the game, the aim of the show, was to teach children about maths. Now, I watched it at the correct age you're supposed to be watching it, and 19 years later, I'm not very good at maths still, so I don't think it did what the program expected.
You should blame your lack of mathematical education on the Numberjacks.
Yeah.
Where there's a blame, there's a claim. So maybe you make a phone call tomorrow.
But when you talk about weird concepts in children's TV, the Numberjacks was weird, but then not so long later, CBBC brought out a program that if you weren't there watching it, trying to explain it to someone takes a lot of effort. So there was a program called Roy. I don't know if you have heard of it, about a woman from Northern Ireland that gives birth to a cartoon boy.
Oh yeah, he was like a black and white scribble, wasn't
He
he?
was in colour. He wasn't in black and white. He was properly in colour. He was proper full on. It was like it was improved. Yeah, it was an improved version of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But that was a weird concept to try and explain to anyone that ever asked what on earth was Roy.
Yeah, but all children's TV programs have always had that influence. They've had that kind because most of it is to do with the child's imagination. So if you can rationalize a floating ginger bubble-headed man and watch it the next time, then that can possibly open up your imagination in other departments, not necessarily in your mathematical brain. So I think if you think back to, Magic Roundabout and Rainbow, and who would have come up with the concept of the characters and what they were like? It sounds on paper like they were having some sort of weird trip, but essentially they were just making kids TV and making it fun. I mean, Sesame Street, one of the best preschool shows ever made on this planet, had crazy characters. Mr. Snuffleupagus and Big Bird and things. You wouldn't, Oscar the Grouch. And you think they're for kids though, but it worked. It was so accessible. So I think if you can unlock other the compartments of a child's imagination, then they learn without even knowing they're learning, which is, I think, the idea of most good children's TV around the world. Really, you don't want to be sitting there going, "Listen up and learn from this," because it's all bit route one, isn't it? You want to do it in a more creative and exciting way.
But sadly, at one point or another, the UK decided to ban Sesame Street. That's why it's not been available in the UK for years.
Yeah, the same as Laurel and Hardy. That all left the TV because I think something happened with the rights, because of obviously Hal Roach, who produced a lot of Laurel and Hardy stuff. That they're all owned by that studio, so people can get very grand. And unfortunately, in the middle of all the politics of saying no, you can't use our program on your TV channels, there's a whole generation of people that miss out on what would be, really a really good bedrock of the future of comedy or of drama or whatever genre that you're watching. But in the history of art, there's always been people to pull it back and strip it down and try and economize or control us in other ways. But the groundbreakers and the real originals, they will shine through, I think, from generation to generation, because cream rises,
And one of the programs you did, that I technically can't say that you did because it's technically still around, but it's changed formats, and I think it's still a thing. You could probably clear it, but what was the process of filming its first incarnation after it left a small segment on a ginormous Saturday program that's recently done a live tour? What was it like doing Diddy movies?
Diddy's were, I thought that's where you were going with that quirky introduction. I mean, Dick and Dom are absolute nutters. They are so infectiously brilliant that you spend time with them. Even when they're being serious, it's kind of quite good fun. But when they laugh and when they are into having some fun and making, being creative in their way, it's some of the best times I've had ever in front of a camera. It's been just phenomenal. The Diddy movies, so the concept of it came off of The Bungalow, obviously, where they played the Diddy characters behind the curtains that just did a little segment, basically, from the mind of Steve Wright, who thought up these crazy characters for Dick and Dom to do. and they developed them together with them. But they had this. I don't know, really know. It's so unique, I think. So because the character, they, you know them, they've got the high pitched voices and the little miniature bodies, but with their normal sized heads. They have this kind of I don't know, just childlike appeal to them, which is so ridiculously silly. But they were very popular. So there were lots of different guises of the Diddy. So we started with Diddy movies, parodying famous films, famous movies that were around at the time, like High School Musical and things like that. And then it developed into Diddy TV, where they had their own sort of consumer program and the news. And but it's all again the brainchild of Steve Ride, who is an absolute gem of a man, but completely insane, which is really handy. We're working with things like anarchic children's shows, which I think channels are so scared to do now, which is a real shame, because I think you've got to push the boundaries to kind of get to another generation. But it will come around again, I'm sure, because there's only so many notes on a keyboard, aren't there? So there'll be another generation of anarchists out there somewhere in a less harmful way than Dick and Dom. Well, they did a series actually called Hoopla, which I worked on with them as well, which was fantastic. But they had this food eating competition on it, where the kids that were on it were contestants. If they got a question wrong, they had to eat this concoction of food, like whole baked beans, celery, and honey with mustard and I mean, it sounds quite nice actually, but when it's cold, and of course then they dress it up to be horrible, and it looks all slimy in the cup, and they have to drink it all down. And one poor lad, was sick and vomited everywhere, and the commissioner deemed that to not be appropriate television for children, so they pulled the show. But that was Dick and Dom. Dick and Dom, they used to turn up on set and go, right, what are we doing then? So, well, we're doing this scene where the gardener comes in and said, where's the script? Yeah, well, we've all learnt the script, Dominic. We're moving forward, but we'll go, right, let's have a look. Yeah, you say that. Right, I said, yeah, all right, yeah, great. Action, boom, they did it. They smashed it. And you just go, how do they do that? They've got this secret little genius, whilst being two of the silliest people you'll ever meet in your life. But like I say, their laughter is so infectious, and the Diddy concept works really well. We did several series that grew and grew. I think we were doing at any one time, we were working on 2 series at any one time, and then the best of at the end. And I think we did that 3 times, so that's 6 series, plus the others that we did before. And the technical side of it was always different. The first time we did it, we had to wear these massive, huge, great big foam suits. And then they blew up our heads, superimposed our heads to be bigger afterwards in post. But so hard to move and dance, so you just drenched with sweat afterwards. So the next series that came along, we were on this rig, basically, where we lay down, face down, with our head on this mirrored collar, and our green screen arms would be controlling the puppet arms. And so they would use our head and then made it look like there was a neckline there. It was all done in post as well, which also worked. But then when we did it again, there was another version of it as well. So, you're hearing it here for the first time. I'm giving away all these television secrets, Tom. You've got an exclusive here, mate.
And what I would love to see, before I mention some other points, is I'd love to see a panel show, which is just called Diddy Panel Show, which is basically what you've done is you've got Dick and Dom as Diddy, Dick and Dom, and then you've got all the comedians and celebrities and whoever you want on the panel, but they've never done this before, so they have to dress up. So that could be it could be a hilarious panel show where these celebrities and the comedians are howling, laughing at themselves because they can see what everyone else can see in the monitors. So that would be a good way to, because Dick and Dom are now university and nightclub DJs, so with their newfound audience of DJ goers, they could bring Diddy into the BBC 3, BBC 1 audience of doing a whole panel show where they're all small.
Write it up, send it to the BBC. This is what needs to be done. I mean, not enough people write in and say, I loved this and I've got this idea, what do you think? if you do that, you will get a reply. You know, people, they do read these emails and letters that go into the BBC, that, and someone, you never know, might take it and go, actually, yeah, that's not a bad idea. So, but it's, you know, if we did it, it's a bit like, yeah, you just want a job, mate. So, yeah, fair enough. So, but people like you, that's what needs to happen, you know, to move forward. They're always looking for new content, new ideas, sometimes using old concepts and old ideas. So there's a lot out there to be done, but it's a myriad of politics and awkward meetings. but essentially that's for someone else to do. I just put on a funny dress and run around making noises.
The only version that I didn't see succeed, but not because of it being terrible, it's just because I don't think it's well publicised, was Diddy Pod, which was there's podcast at the end of the day, which didn't really go so well because it also coincided with a podcast of Horrible History, then a podcast of a reboot podcast of Tracy Beaker. So it was around the time of that. So that's the only time the Diddy concept didn't work, because it was not produced at the correct time and wasn't well publicised.
Well, another reason why it didn't work is because I wasn't on it.
yeah. And with Hoopla, it scared me for like the first 3 episodes, because the theme tune was a bit that freaked me out when it was on. But then I got
which one was that?
No, it was just the theme tune to Hoopla.
Hoopla.
It was a theme tune to the program. It was around the time where I'm not going to repeat it because I'll scare people, but I got told a very scary story about clowns. So for a very small while, I was not happy with clowns.
Oh yeah, because at the end of the show they had a cattle prod, didn't they? A clown with a cattle prod, a dwarf clown. Yeah, very popular by all accounts. Very popular. But there's not enough of those challenging shows on TV, and I think that will change. It will go. Everything goes round in a circle, and these cycles, they will continue. So hopefully one day there will be more of that madness. And before Dick and Dom are dead.
Well,
Dick and Dom are dead.
Oh, yes, that wouldn't be great, but that would be an interesting headline.
You were already dressed for the funeral. Look at you.
Yeah. But I am currently, before we move on, I am currently in the process of trying to work out exactly what the term anarchic in the sense of Dick and Dom, in the sense of Tiswas, is, to try and develop a format for one of my 18 YouTube channels to develop an anarchic type thing. I'm trying to make stuff that's weird and that you would expect to come out of the brains of either Dick and Dom or anyone that worked on the seminal classic Tiswas. Because they are both anarchic and stupid. The aim is, the more dirty you are leaving the studio, the weirder the time you've had. Like, slightly mash up slime celebrities and Chuck's pies and Paul's milk over children, but that's not as anarchic as Dick and Dom shouting creamy muck and then having a custard fight. And then,
well, I recently went to the theatre, to my local theatre here. I live up in Northampton. And the Derngate Theatre is a fantastic theatre. It's incredible. And Dick and Dom were doing their live show earlier this year. They toured it, and it was a brilliant show of the Bungalow Tour, they called it. And it's the only time in the theatre where, as the audience were sitting down, we're all quite well behaved. We're all sitting there
waiting for the show to start. You just hear one voice go, "Bogies!" And then there'll be a laughter, and then someone else go, "Bogies!" And this huge bogey fight. This is before the show has started, Tom.
So, and I thought, this is wonderful, because the most people, when they go to the theatre, they're very well behaved. They doctor this kind of weird anomaly of complete mess and anarchic nonsense. It's just before they've even come on stage. And then they come out and then get even more crazy, and there was creamy muck all over the place. And my best mate, Ian Kirkby, was in it, as all the characters that he did.
You should talk to him as well. He's got some stories of those days. I'm sure he'd be willing to impart with you. But yeah, he's a bit of a legend too. And of course he plays Harry Near Body Move.
Yeah, he's on the on my list of people to hunt down. I just have to find an area to contact him. He's
Keep
another
running, Kirby. Keep running. Hey,
he's another he's like I mentioned him in a say he's like another bloke that I'm trying to track down who's an aloof seller. So Ian Kirby is very aloof with where he's
Don't call him Kirby because you won't get the interview.
well, he's a hard person to track down, and also the Swedish Taskmaster assistant, David Sundin, is also a bloke really hard to track down.
they're avoiding you. You're like the modern day Man in Black, aren't you? You are the Man in Black. Yes. Oh. Tom wants to
Interview you. Oh, that doesn't work. Doesn't work. Don't work on that. Yeah.
It doesn't. And so, before we move on, because that's brought me to an excellent place to move on to.
Isn't it? An excellent segue, if you
Yeah.
will.
So one of the things that Dick and Dom did that no one talks about that I've listened to because it was a podcast they did that was incredible, which was I can't remember the name of it, but what they had to do is you had the audience come on stage. You couldn't see it was not podcast; it was all audio, and the audience had to try and win the budget of the show. And so they had this show, and they brought on a celebrity guest, and then the audience would join in. And at the end of the night, they can have either walked away with none of the budget left, or walked away with all the budget left for the show. And so it was for the audience that used to watch them on Dick and Dom in the Bungalow. And so
Okay.
they played games and they tried to win like £15, £20 or whatever. Because they had a pot in the middle of the stage, what it sounded like, with all their budget for the sound, the lights. And so if they didn't win, no one who works on that show got paid that evening.
Wow. That was an excellent segue of Tom's warped mind.
And so one of the other things you did that not many people might know of, because you have to be of a certain generation, of a certain age to capture the correct reference. But what was it like playing Eric Morecambe in Mr. Sunshine?
Mr. Sunshine. Well, that was a promo for the film. You've almost done the right research there, Tom. Well done. It originated with a play. One of the great heroes of mine growing up were, of course, the duo Morecambe and Wise. Again, from those black and white days, but then became colour, and then they moved from the BBC to ITV, all very controversial. But to a record-breaking 28.8 million people watched in 1978, I think. No, 77. Which was at the time over half the population of the country. So it was a huge show. And someone said to me that I should do a show about Eric. And so I spoke to a mate of mine who produced plays up in Edinburgh, and he said, yeah, I'll produce it. I'm not going to write it, though. You'll have to write it. And I thought, oh, God, I don't know if I can write a whole show. So I went to a really good friend of mine, Tim Whitnell, who is, I call him Mr. Midas, because everything he touches turns to gold. He's got this wonderful creative brain. And I'd worked with him for a few years on an Elvis show in the West End, Elvis the Musical. He played middle Elvis, but he's now gone on to become a BAFTA-winning writer. And anyway, so I approached him and said, look, will you write this play about Eric Morecambe? And he said, oh, my God, I'd love to. You'd be brilliant, Bob. And I said, ready? He said, yeah. Leave it with me. And he went off for 10 days and came back with the first, I don't know, 2 pages of monologue. And just said, what do you think of this? So we started mucking around with it. And then we thought, God, where are we going to take it? We thought Edinburgh, obviously, Edinburgh Festival. But then we needed funds for it to get it up there because it's not cheap to put on a show in Edinburgh. So then we did a few testers, a little 25-minute teaser, if you will, around a couple of theatres around the country, namely the Riverside Studios in Hammersmith. And everyone invested. They all saw the brilliance of what it could be, which was lovely, because Tim's writing was just amazing and really heartfelt as well about Eric's life, because it was quite churlish to take on a project to do a one-man show about a double act. So we decided that the only way to get over the stumbling block that I was only one actor, how could I play everyone, was to use Ernie Wise as a vent doll. Now, Eric famously had his vent doll act anyway, which was, notoriously awful, which he did deliberately. Charlie, I think he called the vent doll. So we thought we'd tie that in and make Ernie the doll. And it became this wonderful relationship. I used to spend all my time all through rehearsals with this vent doll, just going, what are you looking at? Out living with each other, and he'd sleep with me, and I'd wake up next to him, and then I'd go, morning, and and start the day. So it was lovely. It was a lovely creative process, and then we had the full script, and we put it on its legs, and we did a couple of pre-Edinburgh tryouts, and it was quite. To say it was surprising is a massive understatement. I just wanted to do a little one-man play in Edinburgh. I had no idea that taking on the comedy giant Eric Morecambe would turn out to be this successful. And of course, we're not naive enough to know that we were, on the coattails of giants, as they say, standing on the shoulders of giants. This guy was a legend. There was a lot of affection still out there for him. So we had to do it justice. We had to do him justice and Ernie justice at the same time, which Tim's writing just absolutely did. It was tragic, obviously, because we lost Eric at a very young age of 58 in 1984. But it's all his whole life as a lad growing up in Lancashire, from just down the road from you in Morecambe. And in fact, his real name's John Eric Bartholomew, and changed his name to Eric Morecambe to his hometown, and then moved from Morecambe to Harpenden, where he was for years and years and years, where the 43-year partnership with Ernie lasted. So we had to do all that justice, and we took it up to Edinburgh. And I remember doing one of the first shows up there to the public, and celebrities were coming to see it. Lee Mack came to see it, and friends of Eric, Ronnie Corbett, and Lionel Blair, and Nicholas Parsons, and all these people, Barry Cryer, who knew Eric really well, and Ernie, were all coming up afterwards and saying that was just tremendous. So we're getting standing ovations every night. So we knew that we'd done a good job of looking after him. I just personally wanted the family to be on our side and with us on the journey. So, and that's when I made friends with Gail, Eric's daughter, and Gary. We became very close friends and still are now to this day. And I toured, 3 or 4 tours after that, but really took up about 5 or 6 years of my life. And we won an Olivier Award. I was nominated for Best Actor at the Olivier Award. I did the Royal Variety Show and met the Queen and Duke of Edinburgh. And when it was the year that Lady Gaga was on with Diversity, and Bette Midler and Whoopi Goldberg, Michael Bublé and Catherine Jenkins and Peter Kay. The list was huge. It was one of the most surreal days of my life. I'll never forget it. And then it went on to the West End, and we won awards and then toured. So it was a really big part of something I'm very proud of to have done, because to do a one-man show in the West End and make ripples into what is effectively a huge sea of talent and shows that are out there, the competition's massive, was notable, and I was very proud of it, and very proud of Tim for writing it, and Guy, who directed it at the time, and latterly Paul Hendy, who took it on, and we did the last tour with Paul, and that was a fantastic production. So yeah, it's something that I'm really proud of. I'm very happy to talk about, and every time I'm asked about Eric, my hand comes up to my heart, because I've got so much love for him. You can't see now, but I'll see if I can turn it around. Here we go. There's that picture of Eric and Ernie used to hang in Teddington Studios, bizarrely, where I filmed a lot of the Dick and Dom stuff the early years. And so unfortunately the studio's shut down now and gone, but there was a secret bid. They were selling off all different things, and that picture was in the foyer of the studios for years, for 15 years or so, maybe more, 20 years. And Dick and Dom secretly bid on it and won it. And for my 50th birthday 3 years ago, they gave me the picture, which is solid, and it's here on my boat, on our boat in Northamptonshire. I should have said, really, I live on a boat on the river, in a marina actually, but it's beautiful, it's lovely, and this is the sort of office-y space, and my studio, all my recording stuff in here, and so it all happens here, Tom. It all happens. So that's the story of my link with Eric, and one I'm very, very proud of and always happy to talk about because he's a lovely man, you know. He was a lovely man, and he always will be.
Hearts forever. Thank you very much. Good night. Smash your face in.
And what's really interesting about that is that even though I didn't know that Barry Cryer was friends with Morecambe and Wise, I sort of already assumed it because I don't know if you're in, you know, the joke that went around before he sadly passed away. The joke was that that Barry Cryer knew everyone, and he was at everyone's funeral. So the joke was he was going to be at Richard Herring's funeral. Richard Herring made the joke all the time, but he said, because everyone assumed they would never go to Barry's funeral, he would always go to theirs because he thought he was invincible. Because he's that type of man that's been around for so long. No, he might as well have been to use a Doctor Who reference, a Time Lord, because he didn't change faces. No, but he's lived forever until sadly he didn't live forever. But I was not shocked at that. And the other thing is that there's not many young people are into Morecambe and Wise, but I would class myself as an 80-year-old at heart. And my favourite double act of all time is Morecambe and Wise. My second favourite double act is Laurel and Hardy. But I've got the whole. I don't know. I don't think I've got any ITV stuff, but I've got the whole collection of the BBC era. Because I don't think they ever sold the ITV stuff. I don't think.
No, I think I've got some. Yeah, I think they did. There are some out there, the ITV stuff from '78 onwards. Yeah, and obviously the film there was Night Train to Murder, and a lot of the Christmas specials came out as well. But you've got a touch of the Erics about you. It must be a Lancaster thing. You know, if you could just waggle your glasses and go, oh, give us a way.
Hey.
All right, keep working on it. Bring the next one in, please, William. Thank you.
Yeah. But the one thing I quite liked was before we move off the legend that is Eric and Ernie. I quite liked the tribute they did called The Play That I Wrote for BBC.
Yeah.
Tom Hiddleston within. I thought that was one, a touch of genius by its own right, and two, a very touching tribute to the greatest double act of all time. And
well, they'd be flattered, I know that for sure. In fact, when Eric's statue by Graham Ibsen was unveiled in Morecambe in 1999, it was the same year that Ernie died, and it had such a huge turnout of people there, and the Queen herself unveiled it. And since then, that landmark, as you know, you can just sit in the Eric's Cafe opposite. It's called Eric's Cafe, I think, and sit there all day and just watch families from all over the world coming up and posing with Eric in the pose, because of that's how far his access went. You know, he went. Oh, they spent a lot of time in Australia. They spent a lot of time in Canada and did lots of tours. And they went to America many times, but never quite made it in America. Ed Sullivan said because they talk too fast, and Eric, no, it's Americans think too slow, which I thought was great. But just touching on Baz Cryer there, he was another really special man,
and lived a very full life. It should be said, you know, he was in his late 80s,
but still smoked, bless him, and still drank lagers and had a great time with the lads. I think it was the first Tuesday of every month, they'd meet in Studio YG1, which was actually the Yorkshire Grey pub, and and if you were lucky enough, you got invited and you could listen to the conversation that these old boys had about way back when this happened and that happened, and Baz just held court there every time I spent with him, which I was very lucky to be his friend, and as many people have been. But he just lets you in. He's just such a friendly guy, and the most biggest heart that you've ever known. But the great thing about his cigarette packet was there'd just be the odd word on this cigarette packet, and you go, "What's that mean, Baz? Moth?" And then it'd start that'd be, "Oh yes, well, was it remember this lady and blah blah blah," and yes, thank you. He'd say thank you. Yes, and then off he'd go with his comedy mind. He called it his butterfly brain, and then later brought a book out called Butterfly Brain, just an absolute gem of a human who worked, like you say, with them all. And especially with Eric and Ernie, he wrote for Eric and Ernie a lot of the stuff, especially at ITV. And it wasn't them. It should be said actually that Morecambe and Wise's material wasn't always brilliant. It's just that Morecambe and Wise were always brilliant. So it's hard to come up with all that content. You know, I did a comedy sketch show at the BBC. I guess it was around 2012. With two brilliant actors called Watson and Oliver, and they're really funny girls. And to find enough good content, comedy sketches, it's one of the hardest things to do. They went off to Portugal or Spain or somewhere to write. They came back with dozens and dozens of really funny sketches, but it still wasn't enough to fill, 6 or 7 half-hour comedy shows every week. So they needed a team of people to do it, and it's a difficult thing to get into. Comedy is one of the hardest things to do, I think, because you have to physically make someone do something. With drama or music or anything else, the listener or the watcher can just sit there and let it wash over them. But with comedy, you have to physicalize your enjoyment by laughing, and if you don't, then the comedian's not doing their job. So it's a tough one to do. But I took my hat off to the girls, because they were just so brilliant with coming forward to it, and their big comedy references, ironically, were Eric and Ernie as well, and it's just it goes in next generation along, and but you obviously got an old soul and like all the older stuff as well, so that's great, and that's what we've got to push forward, because everything originates somewhere, and to give credit to those people, especially in the comedy world. If you're going to do someone else's joke, that's fine. I think just credit them, just say that's not mine, that's theirs. And then move on from it. He's still funny. It's still, and if you tell it well, or you tell it in a different way, it's like a song. You can do a cover version of
some jokes, and it works.
God, we've gone off on the tangent there, haven't we, Tom? Sorry, mate.
It's fine, because Barry Cryer is one of those. He's probably the only person in comedy to just ring you up and then tell you a joke and then just leave it at that, because that's the downside to comedy. You don't have now that he's no longer with us. You still have him on radio and all this, because he's done so much. You can't get rid of him. But you don't want to get rid of him. But there's no one now that fills his boots. That probably could be. I don't. Well, probably I'm Richard Herring.
Maybe forced to you, Tom. Keep collating all that stuff. I directed a play about Bob Monkhouse a few years ago, and Bob was a real avid collector of everything funny. So he had these, I'm sure you know, they had these massive joke books, huge, great big ledgers they were, with just reams and reams and reams of jokes, all documented by him and collated over the years, which went missing actually at one point. They were stolen and they were returned. But he was a technician and loved that side of comedy. In fact, I urge you to watch. There's a short film that Paul Hendy wrote and directed that myself, another actor called Damien Williams, playing Tommy Cooper, and the wonderful Simon Cartwright, who's just amazing as Bob Monkhouse. He's a proper impressionist, so he came at it from the impressionist side of it, whereas Damien and I were coming at it from the actor side of it to try and encompass the emotions in the style of those characters, whereas Simon had this kind of predetermined Bob Monkhouse character that he already had, and he just sprinkled the scenes onto that. But it's called The Last Laugh. If you get a chance, it's on Vimeo. It's only 23 minutes or something, but it's a really lovely fictional story about the three of them sharing a dressing room. And I urge you and your subscribers to give it a look. It's well worth it.
That does sound quite good, but I love Vimeo. Vimeo's quite good. The reason why I love Vimeo is because of YouTube's copyright, and because I don't want to get a strike on my channel. I uploaded for something I did for college. I made the weirdest thing possible. I made a music video that was you have to make a creative music video. Now, it had to be 5 minutes, so I wrote a story to because the song was only 2 minutes. and it ended up being 7 minutes by accident. And it was the song "Panic" by the Goodies. So
Oh yeah.
Graham Gardner's seen my music video because I sent it to him. Because he still works on. Sorry, I haven't a clue. So his agent, the emails out there, and it was about tea. It's about the racket. It's about there was a crisis with tea. So everyone was panicked. There was going to be no tea, and so I played a prime minister who was trying to deal with a tea crisis. And so I spent one lesson watching the PG Tips adverts and Tetley adverts just randomly because I needed them as sound effects. And so I got a load of people. I didn't make them. Someone else made it. Some panic signs. So the word panic on posts, and we would raise them up. And he was like, the weirdest thing I've ever done. And the credits were playing. I had the credits song as Happiness by Ken Dodd.
Ken Dodd. Yeah.
It was because everyone was happy. And so it was the weirdest thing I think I've ever produced for my college work.
Great stuff. I mean, this is what you're going to do. Someone has passed you the baton. You have to run to the finish line now. That is your assignment for your life.
Yeah, and Bob Monkhouse, before we take a drastic shift to something else, Bob Monkhouse. If it wasn't for Bob Monkhouse,
Do you need the toilet? Is that sorry? What did you just say?
drastic change.
Sorry. Yeah.
Right, so if it wasn't for Bob Monkhouse, a lot of archive TV would just been lost because he saved so much in his little basement on VHS. It's like if
He was the first man in this country to own a VHS recorder, and pay huge amounts of money for it. I mean, nowhere near what they're worth now. What they eventually became. He had one in about 5 or 6 rooms in the house, and as you know, documented everything and recorded all the comedy programs that were on, and wrote all the credits on there. And if he got one wrong, he went back and changed it. It was almost obsession. It was obsessive, really.
And that right still holds firmly because I've got in another room, not below me, but a few rooms towards that way, no matter how the dimensions of the house was. I still have a VHS to DVD converter that I use quite regularly.
Brilliant. Now, the more you're talking, Tom, this is on your shoulders, so don't screw it up, okay? No pressure.
And so one of the things moving swiftly onto something that...
Swiftly on, folks. We're moving swiftly on. You're listening to Tom on one of his 18 YouTube channels. Thank you.
So one of the things you've done, I'm just going to call it a universe because it saves me trying to read the credible long title of the other thing, but except they're the same technically. There's only a few minorities that are different. But what was it like working in the strange world of CGI Noddy?
Good question. To be fair, 95% of when we record stuff, we have no picture to record to. There's a small percentage of what we call pickups to do afterwards, when most of the rendering and most of the animatics have been put to animation, and then there might be changes that need to be done. Because if you think about it, if we were voicing to animation, it would be so time consuming going, oh, no, you're not quite right there. Oh, no, it's a little bit longer there. Whereas it's much easier if we just speak like this, as we are right now, and then someone takes it away as an animator and animates the movements to all our sound. So the process of it, you don't really know about the end product. You sometimes get given a little picture, what they call a Bible of information about the show, and you look at what your character looks like, and that's it. And then you just go from there. But essentially, they choose what voice you do anyway. So with Noddy, the original Noddy, I think it was Noddy in Toyland, I was completely different roles. I was playing PC Plod and Wiz, the engineer, and things like that, and Gobbo from Sly and Gobbo, the baddies. And then that got completely changed, and all the characters were changed when I did Noddy Toyland Detective. And that was very more CGI. That was DreamWorks that had a hand in that. So again, we didn't know what the end product was going to be. We just knew it was a completely different line of story, and I didn't play any of the characters that I played. It's a completely different production company, so it was just by coincidence that I happened to be cast in 2 different separate series years later. And the last one, the CGI one, I was playing Deltoid and a plethora of characters, the pirate captain and things like that. But they're great fun to make. But in the old days, when we were doing it, let's say the old days were 15 years ago, we'd all the voice artists would be in a little room like this together with our scripts and the microphone, step forward like a radio play and say your lines, and you could bounce off each other. The only thing we weren't allowed to do was talk over each other, because if you talk over each other, then the animation has issues. So you have to say your line, leave half a beat, and then the next person says their line, leaves half a beat, and then you reply. So it's a little bit fragmented, but at least you can work off each other. But some of the stuff we could talk over each other. Tweenies, for example, it was all very natural. And what happened in the room at that moment was what we saw on the screen. That's why it felt so normal. These characters felt so, a lot of what we did wasn't completely scripted. It was just, only tiny things like, Max, what is it? Those little, that's not scripted. They're just characterisms that come out and gave it that natural feel. So, but latterly, when newer programs started to be made, they dropped the whole company feel, because I think a lot of production companies felt that putting 7 or 8 actors in a room together at the same time is probably going to lead to lots of digression and lots of fun, too much fun happening, Tom, essentially. So they put a stop to it, and we largely then had to go in on our own and just do a set. So it's yourself, the producer, director, and the engineer, and then you're in the booth and record your lines. So you're completely, I think it's a very different type of show that they end up with, because we're not necessarily working in context with stuff. I would get the scripts maybe a day or two beforehand, and at my first years, I would be looking at the scripts and checking all my lines. But after, when it becomes a sort of well-oiled machine and you know how it works and you know how confident you can be with it, you didn't look at the script at all. You go in and you're saying it within the context of, there's your line, speak that line now. And then the director might say, no, he's just lost his football, that's why he's saying that. Oh, okay, great. And so you can back reference it. But essentially, you don't get the whole rounded piece with all the other actors, which I think suffers. I think the programs seem a little more disembodied and not as accessible for the kids. But having said that, that's the only way they do it now. So there's nothing out there to compare it with. So there's a whole generation of kids that have been brought up in this very clean animation thing, where these actors are just talking to no one. We're literally just saying our lines, and they're putting the jigsaw pieces together. So it's a shame, really, because I think you do get so much more gold out of all being in together. But that time costs money, and money is the big thing that no one's got at the moment. So it's I think that we're just lucky to get any animation that we can out there. I've been doing a couple of animations the last couple of years. One that they're actually Icelandic, called Tulipop, and that's crazy. That's a little bit out there as well. Weird characters. So that'll be coming out. And another one called Kook Troop, which I'm not sure what channel it's going to be on, but it's another preschool animation. That was really good fun characters. I was playing like a Boris Johnson type crocodile called Cornelius. Yeah. Okay. And a little tortoise called I think it's Alf. It's like, all right, come on then, Mildred. So lovely characters. But again, I record them here in my home studio, down the line to someone who's in Iceland or wherever, in France or wherever the production company are based, or in Scotland actually. A lot of them were. And so it's all fragmented and put together in bits, which I think it's not necessarily the best way to do it. It's what we've come to learn and know, and it's certainly easy to budget things. But I think there's something more, and I'm hoping it will come back round again, that we can be an ensemble again and work together to produce what effectively are radio plays for animation. And they work so much more accessibly and also really fun for us to do. And that's not the point, I know, but it's nice for us to enjoy our work whilst we're doing it. If you're sharing that with like-minded people, you pick up and you learn more. And so the younger learn from the elders, and the elders learn from the younger. So and so it works really nicely, but yet to be. So we'll see if that happens again. Hopefully when it does, you'll be part of that journey, Tom. Is that what you want to do? You want to be an actor?
want to be an actor, but I got dyslexia, so reading stuff isn't the easiest.
Well, all these things contribute to you being you, and that's something that is a valuable commodity, you know. And moving forward, someone might say that's exactly the type of character we need for this, that, and the other, and there's room for everyone. And I wouldn't let dyslexia be a stumbling block for you. My son is severely dyslexic, and just having the best life, and as a sportsman, and you know, he's a doer like his dad, really. Get out and do stuff. So you don't necessarily have to be academically brilliant. Anything. The fact that you're taking on these projects that you're doing involve so much more social levels of academia that you don't even know you're doing. It's just coming naturally to you. So please don't ever let that be a stumbling block for you. My son Ernie, he says that a lot. He says, "Oh, I just can't do it. I just and it's like, yeah, but look at all these famous people that have been dyslexic over time, prime ministers and world leaders and award winners, and you know, film directors and people you don't even know, big TV personalities and presenters and politicians that you just think, wow, no one ever tells you that. But I think the more information we get about stuff like that, the more reassuring it is to people like yourself and my son to say, I can do it, and I will do it, and you will, because we've all got to look forward to the next generation of people who respect the previous generations, and that doesn't always happen, does it? So it's lovely that you're flying that flag, mate. Really well done.
That's going from charming to it. Would you ever come back into the world of Noddy if Noddy did a crossover with other DreamWorks projects such as Shrek?
Yeah, I'd come back. Of course I would come back. I'd love to. I don't think I've ever gone away, really. I'm still back doing stuff, but it's weird with well-known shows that we've worked on, because professionally we can't really be too attached to them or too opinionated about them, because they're not our babies. We're just part of the process of making the art form come to the consumer, or the listener, or the subscriber, or whatever. So essentially, it's not my place to say would I or wouldn't I. If my agent calls, okay, you're about to meet the next generation of Golding, which is dangerous. I can only hope that this doesn't go horribly wrong now. Ladies and gentlemen, Nella Golding. Nella, come and say hello. This is Tom. Oh, right, there we go. Look, over there. That wasn't you, no. Right, give him a wave, please. That's Tom. He's a very clever man. Look at him. He's going off to a job interview in his nice leaf suit. The weird thing is he's got pajamas on the bottom half. You can't tell, can you? But there we go. He's funny. So, yeah, this is Nella. How old are you, Nella?
4.
Don't tell me. Tell Tom.
4.
4.
Ooh, that's very small.
Very small, but very clever, aren't you? And do you remember when Daddy did Tweenies?
Yeah.
Do you like Tweenies?
Who's your favourite character in Tweenies?
Winner.
Oh. Cool. Right, say night to Tom now, because he's got another 17 YouTube to produce.
Good night.
You heard it here, folks. Mwah. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Night.
Go.
I'm only 23. The state of me.
And so, coming towards the end of this glorious interview, so that I don't know Paul Williams' situation where I accidentally started talking for 2 hours. But for context to that, Paul Williams is the New Zealand version of Alex Horne in the New Zealand version of Taskmaster.
Mm. Yes, I saw you interviewed Alex as well, which is great. He's a lovely chap, isn't he?
Which, what was it like appearing in human form in EastEnders?
It's amazing what Google can do, isn't it? Yeah, that was. I mean, I think any actor, it's something you expect. Well, not expect, but you hope to do the kind of industry standard shows, the Casualties, the EastEnders, the soaps and stuff because it's got such a high turnover of conveyor belt actors coming in and out. So by law of average, every actor should get a chance to be in one or more of those shows on a regular basis, just to pop up. So my storyline was quite simple. I was speed dating and met Bianca, and we went out on a date afterwards. And I only did about 3 episodes, but it was a lovely time. But it's such a well-oiled machine, EastEnders. That same week, I'd just been filming on a drama called Mr. Selfridge, which was a huge budget Jeremy Piven show. Amanda Abington, the wonderful Amanda Abington, she's so talented. Set in Selfridges in the big department store of London. And they created their own store as well in Chatham, which was the inside of the outside, and the outside was somewhere else. Anyway, it was an incredible process to be part of. But they shoot every scene about 10, 20 times. Well, we do it from this angle, we come up from there, we put smoke there, we do back end of the audience, and we do POV of the actor going the other way. And you've got all these different angles and shots, doing again, cut, now, move, right, a tea break, come back, do again. So it's all really, really intense, and you get so many chances to do your scene. And then convexly, when I went and did EastEnders, that I think it was the same week, it was like 3 or 4 days in Elstree doing EastEnders. And it's the exact opposite. It's like you get in, you've got to know your lines, get there and go, ready, and action. You say it, you go, oh, yeah, I was here for Friday. Oh, yeah, no, it's really good. And cut, thank you. Well, moving on, next scene. Well, don't I get a chance to do it? No, that's it. We shot it. They've got, 4 cameras all getting you from every angle. So move on. That's it. Keep going. So that's how they keep the rotor of the harsh schedule of the show going, really, just to keep it going. Get all your stuff up here first. Thankfully, I was with some really lovely actors who helped me, and I've subsequently worked with people like Steve McFadden and Jake Wood, who are just gems and legends of the show, and they've been very helpful to me because I do panto. Oh, yeah, you don't know? Yes, I do, and that sometimes involves big soap stars that come along and play Captain Hook or the Evil Queen or whatever. And so we've had the lovely Rita Simons and Steve McFadden, as I said, and Sean Williamson. Just brilliant seasoned pros who actually, someone like Steve, he hadn't done too many pantos, so wanted to spend time with the people that had spent a lot of time doing pantos. So it was nice. Again, it's that whole thing of you kind of learn from each other, little techniques that you have and the mutual respect that you have for each other as professionals. So which then goes on to be friendship, which I'm really lucky and feel very proud of those connections I've made over the years with good quality actors. So I was very proud to be part of EastEnders, but as short as it was. And hopefully maybe one day I'll come back and play another character, because that actors can do that. I know plenty of actors that have gone back in as one character, come out as another one. And it works. It works well.
And I like to make a note there that for anyone, before you get angry, yes, Casualty is not a soap. It's a continuing drama. Before anyone comes at me, and I know I have a Casualty YouTube channel, so I do know.
Is that how they view it? It's a continuing drama.
Yes, because from what I know of, a soap has to be on multiple days in the week, not just once a week. And then, because Casualty goes for a series and stops, and then has another series. It's like there's some series 37 at the moment, and so with like EastEnders, there's not like a number of series. It's just like from the 8th of June 1996 or whatever, and it's all been out episodes.
So by those rules, my life is a soap opera, although it feels like a continuing drama.
Yeah, so River City was a soap, but as of September it'll become a drama because they're going to swap the way they do it, so it'll become a drama rather than a soap.
Oh no!
Who knew? And one of the greatest moments in Casualty is a crossover they did with the Welsh language soap Pomley Come, where they had the Jan, who works at the ambulance, they had Robin and they had Charlie walk into the pub. Robin knew Welsh, no one knew she knew Welsh, and so they all spoke English to everyone else, but just spoke Welsh to Robin. The joke was that they had travelled a far way to get there, but Robin would kept on coming to the camera and saying, "Oh yeah, we've gone really far," when actually they're next door to each other. They're filming spaces, so it goes Doctor Who. We went Doctor Who, Casualty, Commonly Come, all in the same.
Is in Bristol? Is it still done in Bristol?
No, it was from 2012. It went up to Cardiff.
Oh, Cardiff. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, Cardiff. Yeah.
It hadn't been in Cardiff since pre-2012. I mean, no, it hadn't been in Bristol since pre-2012.
Yeah. Right. No, Holby was Bristol though, wasn't it?
Oh, Holby was. I think Holby was Cardiff as well, because Holby's supposed to be set in the same hospital as Casualty, so I would have thought they would have filmed it.
Also, it might have been Austria as well. Anyway, yeah, okay. Yeah, we're digressing. But yes. Well, it's really lovely talking to you, Tom, and I really hope your channel get many, many, many subscribers to them.
Yes. And so, with that, we come to the end of the interview. Now, this is a moment of the interview where you get to tell people where they can be found. You do not deliver your home address. Or where can
Well, find me. Yeah, I'm not going to invite everyone round. Let's have a party. Where they can find me? Well, every year I perform as the Dame in the pantomime at the Derngate Theatre here in Northampton. So if you do wish to see me tout my wares, then come along and see me. This year we're doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs with the wonderful Aurea Dube and the incredible Wendy Peters, and a whole plethora of very, very talented cast members and dancers and singers and musicians. As always, we're a multi-award-winning production company, Evolution Productions, that put on a great show every year here. So that I think we go from at a guess, I think it's about the 5th of December to the 31st of December this year. So 3.5, 4 weeks of out-and-out, good old-fashioned family fun.
And so there we have it, another glorious interview. Now, before we skedaddle, a few bits of admin. Now, if you're watching this on Monday, 7th of August, you will have seen, if you stay tuned, you're all 18 and eligible, that on Tom's Comedy Club, that also previously uploaded its first ever sketch show, had a brand new interview on with the wonderful Tom Mayhew. So you can go watch that after you watch this, or watch that before this, because if you want to watch him in chronological order of how I do the interviews, watch Tom's first, then this, because that's chronological. I don't know. It depends on how you want to watch that giant playlist of all the interviews. And if you want to watch more interviews on this channel, on the Weird Side, then please stay tuned to I don't say possibly, yes, on Wednesday, not to name names, because but certain people will know the names later, naming no names otherwise. But
Who one of the other guests will be? Go on, good.
Well, he's big.
He's big.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it's Father Christmas. I've let the cat out the bag.
Yeah. And so, but that is a big.
Large.
Oh, well, I don't even think Sid Little or Eddie Large. Are they still alive?
Actually, I think Eddie's not with us anymore, but I think Sid is.
Well, we need to track him down. Added to that,
You could do a one-man show about Sid Little, couldn't you? Look at you.
I actually am. I used to be the smallest person in my high school. So there you go.
Now, just in his small school.
So there you go. Thank you guys for watching, and remember, no, I forgot.